Hi, this is Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. This podcast isn't some magic trick about how to work less. Instead, it's about how to really enjoy the work that you do and to enjoy your vacation time. Hi, I'm Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation. When I was 17 years old, I used to get these gifts for my birthday. They were bottles of Old Spice aftershave. And I had at least a dozen of them. Now, there was a reason for that. I didn't use aftershave. I still don't use aftershave. And so I collected bottle after bottle after bottle until the entire drawer was stacked with Old Spice aftershave. And if you ask me today, where did all those bottles go? I have no clue. But not once did someone stop to ask me, do you even use this stuff? Here we are on the 200th episode of the 3-Month Vacation, and I thought it would be a good idea to talk about just one thing for a change, and that one thing is giving. But not just giving, but not loading up a whole bunch of aftershaves on someone that never uses it. And for this, I have to start with a story about how I gave my mother an album that she so desperately wanted, and she absolutely hated it. In 2006, my sister got married in Kerala. This is in the south of India, and it's this long little state. It's full of hill stations, it's full of Ayurveda, boat races, and tongue-twisting names like Thiruvananthapuram. Anyway, she decides to get married. They get married. We go there. I take my camera. I take my video camera. And then everything happens. We go back. And my mother wants photos. She wants to show a photo album of the wedding and everything that happened. And, well, that's what mothers do. They want to show it to their friends and to their family and everybody else. Now, here's where the problem began. Because my sister lives in Dubai, and for some reason, she didn't get the photos across to my mother. And so I stepped in like the good son. Now remember, I took my camera and I took my video camera, so I was pretty well armed. And I told my mother, no problem, I'll get all the photos to you. I put all the photos together in an album, got it printed, Now, of course, it's no big deal to get it printed, but we're talking about 2006. And then I send it to her. And I'm waiting for her to come back and say, wow, that was so amazing. And she hated it. Now, in Kerala, a lot of the weddings, they go on for almost a week. The families come across, there's a lot of eating and drinking, and it goes on for this entire week. And I was taking pictures the whole week. This included my father eating out of some kind of vessel, him in a vest, pictures that you don't want to have in a wedding album, or at least my mother didn't want to have in a wedding album. It sounds really cool to me, but not to her. And like those Old Spice bottles, I have never seen that wedding album ever again. But the point wasn't lost on me. The point was very simple, and that is that you want to give a gift. That's really kind of you. You want to be generous, but you want to make sure that you are giving somebody something that they want. And time again, we see this, that we give people the stuff that we want, not the stuff that they want. We think that we're giving them stuff that they want, but often it is the stuff that we want. And this story of my mother and me, it stays in my memory every time I decide, okay, I want to give a gift to someone. And I go, is this for me or is this for the other person? And if the gift is for another person, then I have to at least understand somewhat that it's going to be useful to them. Now, we go on holidays, on vacation quite often, and Every time we go away, we bring gifts for our nieces, Kira and Marcia. And we realized that it wasn't just a question of gifting them something. Because I remember this story when Kira was about 5, and we had brought all of these gifts for her, and she picked up the chocolate and she was, yay, wow, and then something else and she was, wow, and then she picked up the third one and it was a t-shirt, and she said, another t-shirt? And even at that young age, she knew that the gift wasn't specifically for her. It was something that we wanted to give her, not something that she wanted to receive. So what Renuka came up with was this little I want and I don't want list. And every time before we go on vacation, she gets them to write the stuff that they want and the stuff that they don't want. And it's very interesting. It's interesting because their tastes change. Sometimes they'll go, I want a bouncy ball. And then the very next time they will go, I want another bouncy ball. And you think, you already got a bouncy ball the last time. But they go, I would still like another bouncy ball. And then the third time you go, you think, okay, they love bouncy balls, but no, there it is on the I do not want list. Many years ago, I used to love drinking tequila. I still do. But then people started buying me tequila bottles. And now I have a lot of them. And then I switched over to Lagavulin. And now I have a whole bunch of Scotch bottles. And I know that once I say that I have a lot of Scotch lying around, I'm going to get a lot of volunteers. But the point is very clear. It is that giving is very difficult in the first instance. Most of us are so keen on splitting bills. Most of us are so keen on getting the other person to give something to us that it's so rare that when we do it, it's very powerful. And it's very powerful in business, especially to be able to give. And this is what we covered in the 2004 Brain Alchemy Masterclass, which we give away free, by the way. Even though we used to sell it for $1,500, I think we still do on the website. But sometimes we give it away free. And in that, we had a chapter called The Spider's Secret. And that is, you can go after clients or you can get them to you. And one of the ways to get them to you is to give them the stuff that they specifically want, not the stuff that you want to just throw away. Not the Old Spice bottles, not the album that nobody wants, specifically not my mother. And sometimes the bouncy ball is good for 2 times, 3 times, and then it's no value anymore. I think the simplest thing that we can do is to personalize whatever we're giving. A little card can do the trick. You don't have to go and give someone a fancy gift. Last week, it was the birthday of one of our family members. And again, Kira and Marcia sat down and they drew little postcards. And I can tell you that among all the gifts that that person would have received, this personalized thing, the stuff that is more interesting to the person getting it rather than the person giving it, that would have stayed in that person's memory. That will stay in that person's memory. And we don't always have to give fancy stuff. Whether it's business stuff or it's personal stuff, we have to remember, who is it for? And I guess that's what the podcast is all about. It's always been about how can we give stuff rather than be selfish. But I think it needs another layer, and that is, who is this gift for? Is it for me or is it for the other person? And that brings us to the end of this podcast. When we started out in 2014, I didn't think that we'd be doing 5, 10, 20, 200, whatever. But here we are, 200 episodes down, and it's just one milestone on the rest of the journey of the podcast. And I'm so glad that you've stayed with us this whole time, because some of the original podcasts were horrific. Well, they sound horrific to me at least. And here we are. It's Saturday morning. I don't work on weekends, but sometimes the week just goes past me. And this week had just been this whole battle with the cartooning page on our website. So, as you know, this perpetual website that's been going since July of 2015 is now coming to a close. But there were a few pages, and one of the pages was the Da Vinci page, which is the cartooning course. And of course, I allocated one whole day for that page. 7 days later, it's still going. And it's not like I haven't put in effort to finish that page, but for some reason, 7 days later, that page is still going. It's still not done, by the way, but it will be. And not over the weekend, but I had to come in and do this podcast for that reason. The good news is that the Da Vinci course, which was released last week, I think, sold out in 14 hours. After that, we sold out the Houston workshop, which is on the, how to write a sales page. We still have 5 months to go, and that's sold out. A lot of this stuff gets sold out very quickly, partially because of the giving. A lot of the information that you see on the website goes into extreme detail, so it's not this fluff, what we call fluff, which is just, stuff that's just stuff put together, but really in-depth stuff. And it's the same thing with 5000 BC. People, when they get to 5000 BC, are always very surprised when they ask what seems like just a bunch of questions or one-line questions, totally expecting to get one-line or five-line answers, and then they get a complete article or a series of articles or even a report based on those 4 or 5 questions. And sometimes they're embarrassed. They think, well, I'm taking up too much of your time. But I don't see it that way at all. I see it as some question that is coming to me, and the question might be the same. Often the questions are the same, but the answers always change. So much has changed over the years. I mean, if you said, how do you promote yourself, say, back in 2005, it could have been blogs. In 2007, it could have been YouTube. In 2014 or 2016, it could have been podcast. The whole mechanics of everything changes. And when you are able to answer these questions, then you're able to give the client what they want, not specifically what you want. But in the process, we get what we want as well, which is information that we can repackage, we can resell, we can do so much with it. So it's a mutual benefit when people ask questions in 5000 BC. And I think that's one of the reasons why people have stayed in 5000 BC for years, 10 years, 12 years. We have clients there since the very start, which is in 2003. So that's 15 years. But enough of patting ourselves on the back. I hope that you will continue to listen to the podcast, and we'll catch up on the 201st podcast, which is about 4 recurring questions that I get about testimonials and why those answers are so important. So we'll catch up on the next podcast. Thank you again, and bye for now. Bye-bye. Still listening? One of the interesting episodes that I had was with my other niece and godchild, Sienna. Now, she lives in Dubai with my sister, but occasionally we meet up in Goa, in India, where my parents live. And we always take gifts, and the way we kind of take gifts is in a bag. It's always like a Christmas thing, because we grew up Catholic, and you always get these bags full of stuff like a stocking, and you take one thing out and a second thing out. So when we take gifts for my mother, my father, and for Sienna and stuff, we always take a bag full of stuff. Small things, not necessarily big gifts, small things. But it's always fun to remove one and the second and third and fourth and fifth. And anyway, we went around giving all these gifts to everybody. And then Sienna said, oh. And she calls my dad Papa. And she says, you got Papa a gift? And we said, yes. And she said, oh, the men very rarely get any gifts. All the gifts are for the women. that was an interesting insight. And it's true to some extent, because you go somewhere and you come back and you get some earrings and lipstick and a whole bunch of stuff. And usually the men get some kind of t-shirt or some silly gift like that. So it's crossed my mind. It's crossed both of our minds. And Sienna's advice, that has also stayed with us. So what's the one thing that you can do? Well, the one thing that you can do, wherever possible, is to have this personalization in your gift. To stop being an automatic autoresponder, auto whatever, and to just write a little note. And where possible, if you can get a want and do not want list, do that. And that's me, Sean. This is saying bye for now. Bye-bye.